Going to be looking at the spam and scams, and the common denominator here is that they all come to you in the form of a cell phone call. Remember, you can join the conversation. The number to dial is 021 446 0567, or you can send a voice note to 072 567 1567. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear your experiences. And of course, if there's any questions for Wendy, she will be happy to give it a bash at answering it as well. Wendy, shall we start with spam news?
Yes, thanks, Saskia. So the spam, or to give it its official term, direct marketing. So that would be an unsolicited approach. It doesn't only mean calls. It can mean emails. It can
Texts.
can be WhatsApps. It can be SMSs. It can be you walking through the mall and someone at a little pop-up stall approaches you with a sample in the hand and entices you over. Oh. That's direct marketing, because you were going about your business and had no intention of engaging. So they approach you it's them approaching you directly rather than you deciding on a Wednesday afternoon, I'm going to go and I'm going to take out a cell phone contract. No, you got the call. So it's anything that's directly approaching you. And the upside is that because it can often be a hard sell, because you weren't intending to take out the insurance policy or the cell phone contract or whatever, the insurance policy, you get a week's cooling off period, 7 days in which to cancel for no particular reason. You have an out. It's your cooling off. But for the rest, I think companies seriously overestimate our need to be in touch with them. There's always been a pushback to a block, you and me being able to put our name on a list, and then they can't contact it because they're going to miss out on this, you're going to miss out on that. And some companies say, well, you're going to miss out on, if you're already contracted with them, you're going to miss out on your important information that we need to tell you. Well, they still need to tell you the important information. Yes, it's just stuff it's marketing. This is direct marketing where they want to sell you something rather than tell you something that's in your interest to know. There's a big difference.
So it's unsolicited.
It's unsolicited marketing.
Marketing.
We want to sell you something or upsell you if you're an existing customer. Okay, right. So the big news, and just to give you some context and numbers, although these numbers are so huge, it's hard to process, but South Africans received an estimated 30 billion spam calls last year alone, with the first 2 months of this year already showing an acceleration to over 5 billion calls. So there's a lot of it going on. 2 weeks ago, the government gave we consumers some real protection against spam, all forms of it, by gazetting amendments to the Consumer Protection Act's regulations, which were published way back on the 1st of April 2011. So we're talking 15 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And these changes fundamentally change the do not contact landscape. So what we've had for many years, 15, 20 years, is the direct marketing associations do not contact facility. And I put my name on that years ago. I think it's fallen off and been put back by me a number of times, because sometimes I think I'm on it and then I think, but I need to experience spam calls if I'm going to talk about it professionally. Yeah. So the limitation there was that it was only the DMA, the Direct Marketing Association's members who were bound by it.
Oh, so that's the difference.
And it wasn't compulsory to be a member.
Because I was wondering what the difference is now between that old, I put my name here to opt out of it, versus this new legislation and protection.
So what it would have done is stop a lot of it, but not all of it.
Right.
And all along, when the Act came into effect on the 1st of April 2011, it made provision for this government-run Do Not Contact platform, but it just never happened. So now, finally, 15 years on, I gave up asking after a while because I just wasn't getting anywhere. So anyway, this one is now a fantastic step forward. It will be administered by the National Consumer Commission. So this is a government one. And if you put your name on that, you can select that you don't want any spam whatsoever in any form from any company or any industry, or you can say, you can select what you want. So it puts us, the consumer, in control, which we haven't been up till now. So it's huge if it works correctly.
Yes.
And I'm not going to be cynical at this point.
You sound very excited.
I'm not going to be cynical. I'm going to reserve judgment for when it's actually happening, right? I'm going to reserve judgment of the companies that need to register it, because that's the thing. If you're doing any form of direct marketing, you legally have to register.
Correct.
with this do not contact with the NCC's platform, and the platform needs to be running properly, right, efficiently. The commission needs to have the capacity, which they'll be working on now, because come July, and they haven't registered the date, they haven't publicized the date rather. From some day in July, you and me and every other South African will be able to go onto that platform and register do not contact me at all, or I only want these industries or companies to contact me, kind of thing. So that's happening in July, and literally you get to control what, if anything, you want to receive as spam.
Is this now that preemptive block?
Yeah, it's a preemptive block. That's what it means. Preemptive, in other words, you get to upfront say, no, don't even, because at the moment they can call you in terms of the CPA and the POPIA, Protection of Personal Information Act. Once they call you, you can say, don't call me again, and then it becomes a crime, an offence for them to continue to contact you. But as we all know, and I'm sure the listeners shouting at their radios at the moment, or their phones, saying, but that doesn't work. You say no and they still do it. Well, now we're getting into an arena of we're going to have a lot more protection.
Technically, the technology is not there yet, right? Because we can only register in July.
Yeah.
So we don't actually know what this is going to look like. How do you suspect it's going to work?
We're going to have to, obviously, you're going to have you've got to register your ID and all the rest, and then make your choices. And what the NCC is busy doing now in the intervening months is getting their systems up to the point, capacitated to the point where when millions of people want to register at the same time on the same day, it's going to be novel. We don't want it to fall over. Like, remember in the early days of online shopping and Black Friday, Take-A-Lot system used to fall over. I remember reporting on that, and that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen anymore because, it's going to be the big pressures on the NCC and their partners, because, that's millions of people potentially, depending on how well the word gets out and sits with people, and how many people are annoyed enough with spam calls to think I'm registering the moment I can.
I am.
I'm certainly am.
Most definitely.
Although I always have that thing, well, I'll give you an example of sometimes getting the calls gives me it's research. It helps my work. So just yesterday I got a call, and I hadn't for a while. I've noticed, especially the insurance companies wanting to give you a quote for your car insurance. I used to get 3 a week minimum, and I haven't had one for a while. But I got this call from this company. I scribbled the name down, and do you think I could find it in my notebook? When you open the notebook and it's not actually the right page, and I've scribbled it somewhere, can't find it. But anyway, it was a car tracking company, and not one of the big ones. And she started out by saying, we are going to fit that in your car. And I went, sorry, you're going to do what? I said, oh, are you paying for it? Is it free? No. I said, well, then you're not going to do it. You're not going to have anything to do with it. No, thank you. And she went, oh, sorry. She was actually quite contrite. But this is one of the things, and this is another show, but the telesales scripts for this industry is all about assumptive acceptance. So they won't say, do you want it? They might say, so the debit order is going to be on, and then you got to agree. But they don't actually stop and say, do you want to buy this thing? Have you ever noticed that?
Yes, I have.
And this whole thing, and so we are going to, or you are, and just the whole industry bothers me. So I think this, as you can probably tell, this is potentially a really nice step forward for consumers.
Got some questions around this. Wendy from Mornay, does this change in legislation to the CPA apply to estate agencies as well?
Oh, yeah.
Anyone that engages in direct marketing.
I know that, there's a shortage of property in the Cape.
I get a call every week.
I don't know why. I'm feeling very left out. Just in terms of I don't have personal experience to share. But I don't know why. I've bought a property 5 years ago. I've never had one in a popular area. I've never had one estate. I should be lucky, I know. But whenever the topic comes up, estate agents seem to be the first ones that get mentioned.
Also, what about companies who are calling from outside South Africa or routing calls via another territory?
If they targeting South African consumers within our borders, then they fall under our legislation. And trust me, in other areas, in many other areas, they have similar protections for consumers.
Nick's got a very interesting question on the spam calls. Is any consideration given to the number of jobs that might be lost? I mean, these call centers employ huge numbers of people. And then on that note, if there are companies listening, I mean, direct marketing teams now, what should they be considering?
Look, I'm a consumer journalist, so I'm not a labor journalist or, my mandate is to look out for consumers and their rights. And I can tell you, after doing this for 28 years, that people are every day duped or pressured or whatever into deals that they didn't fully understand, that weren't properly explained, were read out very fast by people who are incentivized with commissions to get a sale. And in many cases it will go well, but I still believe dearly that the way these products are sold for the most part is not in consumers' best interests. They, especially if it's an insurance policy or something, everything is legally binding. You don't have a copy. You don't end that call with a copy of what you agreed to. They aren't mandated to automatically share it with you. That's a gap in the legislation. By the time you find out, your cooling off period has passed. So I do not relish, and you and I were just talking off air, Saskia, about unemployment and what a crisis it is, and how the instability that unemployment creates affects all of us in one way or the other. So I feel it is one of those impossible things.
Yeah.
I don't know where, because the industry does employ a lot of young people. It's but let's see if it's really is a boon to consumers. Look, still consumers are going to continue to, it's not like the call centers are going to shut. There are people who want to buy cell phones and insurance over the phone. It's not like everybody's going to say we don't want to be contacted because it's convenient and whatever. And if it's worked for them in the past and if it's done correctly, they know what they're about. My problem is that as a consumer who's not that sus and who's open to exploitation. But it's not, as I say, it's not like this is going to signal mass unemployment. And you can be sure that the DTI would have spoken to the Department of Trade, that would have spoken to other sectors of government about this and the impact. And possibly that might have been why it's taken a while to come to this, for them to introduce this do not block.
Because of all the
ramifications
engagement that they would need to be
with
considered.
other sectors. Yeah.
And we've got to make a case for ethical business. I mean, at the end of the day, there's got to be a case for service, a case for consumers actually being the ones that start the process, as opposed to, because like you say, these scripts are written intentionally to actually scam people, to fool people.
Well, I won't always use the word scam, or I would say they are designed to talk up the good stuff and skim over the bad stuff. And the terms and conditions are not always
transparent.
They're not all the ones that can trip the person up, the consumer up, are not read out. They are left to read about it in the policy, whatever. So I just think the power imbalance is what gets me, Saskia. That the average consumer is not equipped to ask the right questions. The person's talking over them, talking very fast from a script. It just bothers me. And this whole assumptive closing, this assumptive agreement I've looked at many, many, many scripts over the years. I think they have tightened up a bit, but it's still the power imbalance that worries me and that I see play out in my inbox on a weekly basis.
Daily.
Yeah.
You can still, though, register yourself on the current national opt-out database.
So that's the voluntary one,
Yes.
the direct marketing one, and it's not going to stop at all. But if you want to, in the intervening months, nothing stopping you doing that. I read this bit of advice, which I love. When you get a spam call, because they always say this call is being recorded. And sometimes I say, well, I'm recording it too, and there's a bit of a hesitation. And I say it in their language. Please note that. Which is very patronizing.
Like
so you could say, please note that I'm recording this call. Under POPIA Section 11, I withdraw my consent for marketing. Please provide your information officer's details so that I can file a formal objection to processing. And that's usually the end of the call.
I like that.
Because you know what it is. It's about the power. Telling them we also have power as consumers, and because they're very high-handed. It's like they're in control, and you're, Let me just say, I don't advocate being rude to these people.
No, of course
they're
not.
reading from a script. They're trying to do a job, and I am personally never and I wouldn't advocate it. It's uncalled for. But their script is designed to put you at effect of something that's happening to you, and this kind of language, very calmly expressed, rectifies that power imbalance.
Wendy, I've got a question in here from Vimpy. Vimpy wants to know that if I buy a vacuum cleaner and change the plug, does that actually annul the warranty?
I'm afraid so. The Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman Office has flip-flopped on this, but the latest thinking is that it does. And the reason for that is that under Section 56 of the Consumer Protection Act, you can return a defective product, a product that becomes defective within 6 months of purchase or delivery, for your choice of a refund, replacement or repair, right? But there are a few exclusions, obviously, and one of them is if you've altered or modified the product in any way. And if you think about changing a plug, there's quite a bit of expertise, and it's quite an integral part. Yes. So at one point, the Ombuds office said, well, it doesn't apply to the changing of a plug unless it can be proved that in doing so, you caused the problem that you're now complaining about. But it's since been revised to, no, don't change the plug. So the advice is, if you don't live in a newish build like I do that has those modern plug
options
faces
with everything in it.
Yeah, the two pin, the
round one,
the three prong, and what's the other one you were talking about?
USB.
The USB. Then buy an adapter. It's much safer.
Okay, so the general rule of thumb is
don't change the plug.
It.
Well, change the plug, but if there's, you're avoiding your warranty.
Right. Also got in a question here from Brandon saying, very interested in finding out, very interesting question, in the fast food industry. Usually when you go and order and you say a burger and chips, what he's noticed is a lot of the big chains will say, will you like a medium or a large chips? Now the medium, he says, is normally an upsize from the normal regular price. So is that them tricking you into upsizing chips? Is that a form of direct and suggestive marketing?
Not really, because you're there to buy something. It's not like they've pulled you in. Yes, but that's something different. That's not direct marketing, but that is, I would say, it's misleading. And I've actually challenged a number of QSR, they technically called quick service restaurants, about this. So you'd be standing, I remember once ordering a juice, same thing. Would you like the medium or large? And I'm looking to do and said, I'm looking at the options behind you, and there's regular. Why haven't you mentioned that? And they're obviously trained to do that. So I take a dim view of that. That could potentially be, I would say that is misleading. And the Consumer Protection Act is all about transparency and not trying to trick your customer. So I think, report it. We've got, as long as you're 100% accurate in what you're saying, I'd like to hear what other listeners think about that, because we should be challenging that.
Yeah, we should.
And naming and shaming publicly, as I say, as long as you're absolutely 100% sure of your facts, it can never be defamation. If it's true and in the public interest, we can say it without fear of being nailed for defamation.
I'm going to start taking notice now.
Yeah.
Let's move to the worst unasked calls of all, the scammers.
Right. Okay. So one form of them would be the debt review companies, debt counseling companies, who do register with the National Credit Regulator. So they've got that veil of legitimacy. And then they set up call centers. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to go under debt review, which is a legal process under the National Credit Act, as a way of getting yourself out of this
Trouble.
this pit of debt you find yourself in. So it's going to stop the debt collectors and the companies, credit divisions calling you. You're going to sit with a counselor, work out, separate your wants from your needs, and you're going to come up with an amount that you can afford to settle your debts in a lump sum. And they're going to negotiate with your creditors and perhaps reduce some of the interest and get it down a little bit. Okay, so that's how it's supposed to work. And then over a period of 3, 4, 5 years, whatever, depending on how deep your hole is, you rehabilitate yourself. You're not being nagged to pay up anymore. And at the end of it, you clean and then you can get new credit. You can't get any fresh credit while you're under debt. So it's a very specific legal process. And what these rogue elements do is they set up these call centers, capacitate them with these people who are again incentivized to get you to sign up, right? And what they say is, and I've had several of these calls, they will say, hello, and they'll lie. They'll say we've been mandated by the National Credit Regulator, or it's a government initiative or something like that. You are paying too much in your repayments every month on your credit, or are you, or whatever. And we're all going to say yes. I'd like to pay half of what I'm paying in my bond.
100%.
That would be lovely. In my car, I'd say yes, but it's not going to happen. They pretend they're going to negotiate. So they're saying, taking nuggets of truth in the system, we're going to negotiate and we're going to get it down. They'll say something like 30 to 40%. They don't ask the key question, which is, are you over indebted? Because just me wanting to pay less doesn't mean I can't afford to pay what I'm committed to. It's a very big difference. And so they'll send you something through on your phone. They'll say, we just want to check with the credit bureau, and you sign it without reading, or sometimes they haven't signed at all. It's just forged. And the next minute you're under debt review. You've lost control of your accounts.
That's very scary.
And to get out of it, they'll say, well, you need to pay 7,000 rand or whatever, and it needs to go. It's a whole show on its own for me to explain the gaps in the legislation that allows them to do that. But the point is, they'll start that conversation with you paying too much on your monthly repayments. So technically, that's direct marketing because they're trying to get you to go under debt review, right? So they should legally register with the National Consumer Commission, right? And if you've put your name on a block for everything, you cannot get those calls. Because I want to tell you, Saskia, how many people contact me and my fellow journalists in this personal finance space. The calls we get were people who have just been sunk into the most impossible situations. They can't get credit, and they haven't got the money now to get out of it, and it's a lengthy process. So, I mean, if that would work, technically they have to register. They're not going to want to. I spoke to a major debt counsellor earlier in the week. They're not going to want to, but the National Credit Regulator should force them to. So I'm going to be putting some pressure there because that will save a lot of people who are just duped. Okay, they bear some responsibility. They didn't read the thing they signed in some cases because, they just want to get paid.
But again, the power dynamic in that script, the power dynamic in the person who has the advantage in approaching you and you're on the back foot.
And in that case, the word scam does apply because they are misleading you into it. They're not asking you the first question, which is, and they're pretending they've been mandated by government or whatever. So that is horrendous. So that's another reason never to take any call. Someone's offering you something. It sounds great. Your red flags must be up and waving furiously at you. But what happens is our greed or financial need for financial relief or whatever supersedes our common sense, and they know that. They are arch manipulators. They understand human psychology and they play to it.
And I think when it comes to debt and finances, this hits in a real base place for South Africans, especially in terms of safety. So you automatically going into this reptilian brain of survival mode, and automatically there's then things psychologically that can happen. And again, I'm going to say that person that's approaching you, that's got the upper hand in the power script, they're more prepared.
Of course they are. They're very prepared, and they're doing it over and over and over every day. You're getting getting this call and you yeah. So that was just a potentially good consequence, another good consequence of this do not contact government-run platform that I thought, oh, well, let's hope that happens, and I'm going to do my best to make sure it happens, and I hope some of them are listening. And then the other calls, not to be confused, what are the other calls we get that we really don't want to take? And there's the debt collectors. If you're not under debt review, the debt collectors can continue to call you. And they have different, they're working under a different set of legislation. They fall under the Debt Counsellors Act. Right. Sorry, Debt Collectors Act. Now I'm confusing them. Debt Collectors Act. So this is when we are allowed to, if you haven't blocked, this is when you can get calls wanting to sell you stuff. Weekdays from 8 in the morning till 8 at night. It's longer than most people think. So someone calls you at 7, it's not illegal, or even just before 8. And on Saturdays from 9 to 1, and not at all ever on Sundays and public holidays, of which we have a few this month. But the people who are phoning, the debt collectors, have got a longer window in which to phone you. They can phone you if you owe them money and they're trying to collect from you from between 6 in the morning and 9 at night, and on Saturdays between 6 in the morning and 1. And like the direct marketers, they may not phone you on Sundays or public holidays unless you've given them permission to do so. And I do so they might sort of not be that transparent in the way they get you to agree to it. But yeah, so that's interesting. And yeah, so whenever I talk about spam calls, I always get questions about the debt collectors. So I thought I'd throw that in proactively because they work under different rules that fall under different pieces of legislation.
Wendy, what about SMSs? Because I get a lot of SMSs and in the scam space. I'm getting one at the moment from a courier company, which I'm just ignoring because I haven't actually ordered anything. And
so that's fraudulent spam. And because so many of us are shopping online, they're finding fertile ground, because if maybe you were expecting a parcel, you might be more open to respond. And how to recognize them is they're always vague. They won't use your name. They won't say the company that you've ordered from, which some of the genuine ones also don't. But you'll notice that the genuine ones are starting to use reference numbers. So you can go back and see, okay, my order number was this, or I was given this tracking number. Yes, it is them.
And this is why I'm asking you, because this one is also using a tracking number, but I definitely didn't order anything.
No, they might, but it'll be made up. So always check the numbers. Don't be too lazy to check the numbers.
And then it's also happened with friends with the banks as well. But it's also fraud.
Oh,
so it's not actually the bank, but it's an SMS. And, we tend to not pay so much close attention to the SMSs, I think.
I know.
And we're kind of more likely to just click on it.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And, well, I wanted to talk about it before we run out of time was we said spams and scams. So the calls that you must definitely just say goodbye immediately to are the ones saying, I'm phoning from your fraud department. And I've had the fraud department of your bank, rather. There are other forms of it. Sometimes it's MTN wanting you, saying, got rewards for you, just disengage. When does MTN, the real one, ever phone you about that? Or else free, discounted tickets for airfares if you're wanting to travel, and you know what's happening with the prices now. So those ones are going to come thick and fast, I think. And you go on and they keep you on the line and they get into your accounts. But the ones I got 2 complaints, one yesterday, one today, that were almost identical. Same bank, and I'm not going to name the bank because I've taken this up with the bank and I want to get their response. But basically, the true caller in both cases said it was ex-bank credit card fraud or credit card.
Caller actually.
So what happens there is, and so they trusted it.
Yes.
Okay, but what happens there is the fraudsters abusing the true caller thing, which is a community platform. So if you get a spam call, you'll say X insurance company spam or whatever, and so then other people will know. So what the fraudsters do is they register their numbers under Standard Bank credit card or Nedbank or whatever.
Clever.
And if you're not with that bank, you're not going to bother. But if you are, you're going to take the call. And these two were. So Zakile says, and these calls happened less than a week apart. Two separate people phoning, telling one consumer journalist, you must know the scale of these things. And basically, I got a call on the 19th of March from what Truth's caller identified as the credit card division of my bank. The lady on the line asked me if I wanted to increase my credit card limit. So she's not saying it's fraud. It's mostly they're saying it is fraud, but they're the fraudster. But this case, we want to request your credit card. And I was thinking of doing this, she said. So I said yes. And then they said, I also qualify for 5,000 ABSA. Sorry, I've just mentioned the bank. Sorry, ABSA. But all the banks are. Fraudsters are targeting customers of all the banks. So to qualify for the ABSA rewards, I need to accept the OTP, which she sent twice. So what they're doing is, in both cases, they've got your card details, not too hard to find on the dark web if you're a fraudster. But they still need our authentications to shop. So they load your card details on a shopping platform. Now they need your one-time PINs to be able to get the purchases confirmed. Yes. So and the banks will tell them that we're not refunding you, because all the banks are warning all their customers constantly about this. So the advice is really simple. And I've been saying it over and over again because it's so painful to get these emails from people who've fallen victim to these kind of tactics. It's called phishing, voice phishing.
Right.
Is anytime someone says they're from your bank, wanting to warn you about fraud, wanting to increase your credit limit, wanting to do anything, end the call, say goodbye. And then how easy is this? Grab your card, whether it's a credit card or your debit card, grab the card and phone the number that's printed on the back. Those lines are security, solid, tight. They are not spoofed. And they trigger they are like priority in the banks. So you phone that bank and just make that number and just make absolutely sure that there isn't fraud or whatever. And that's easy. So say goodbye, number one. Number two, phone the number, get your card out and phone that number, and that's it. It's not hard. Please, I just can we normalize having this conversation with especially our older family and friends, because they are, some of them tell me I was on the phone for an hour, and our younger people are like, there's no way you're going to keep them on the phone for that. Do you know what I mean? They're like, let me go into my app rather. Or but older people are like, they're from a different era where talking on the phone was normal. Companies did that. And credible. Exactly. That's the word, Saskia. So please, they must just end the call, and just in case the 1% chance that it was fraud, phone the number on the back of their cards. Now, even if you're not tech savvy, you can do those two things, because the number's on your card. You don't have to go into any website. You don't have to go into any app. You just grab your physical card and phone the number. In those calls, anyone that's phoning about finances, the debt collectors, if you want debt collectors, you have to take those calls. Or even then, tell them to send you an email. You want to see it in writing. So we must just
be a little bit more savvy. I must tell you, when I get any of the calls from the banks, the first question I say is, how do I know you are from my bank? And what I'm waiting for them to say is, well, if you don't trust me, you're absolutely right. Go and find that number and call the number, and we can reconnect that way.
Exactly.
My frustration is always, though, in a day and an age where we're not making regular calls anymore, a lot of these numbers you can't do a WhatsApp call to.
Yes.
So data calls are an issue. So if you're not on a package where you can make the regular calls, it is frustrating.
This is the banks are starting, and some of them have already enabled you to phone them via the app. And then you can do it, over data.
And inside the app environment is normally a secure environment.
Exactly. I had this experience with a bank just this last week.
Yeah.
And she seemed surprised, because I think a lot of people haven't realized it. And she said, I see you phoning on the app and da-da-da-da. So that's going to be a real blow for the scammers.
Well, Hildegard says, I'm working in the banking sector, and clients are constantly falling for this trick by divulging OTPs and then request the banks for refund. This is very, very informative, she says.
Thanks, Hildegard.
Anne also says, got a call last weekend. Fraud different bank. They kept us on the line on both phones. Very, very slicked. Asked for a supervisor, also slicked. They kept us going for over an hour. Then they wanted us to transfer all the money into a vault account. So slick.
To keep it safe.
And
yes.
then this is from Anne in Plumstead.
So I want to just say one thing on the back of that, Anne, and that is a lot of the banks already. I have accounts with several banks, partly because I write about bank fraud so much and other forms of bank activities. I like to experience different environments. And so they are moving to the one standard. I can tell you, if you're on a call and you try and go into your app, it will say, do you know this caller? But the problem there being is that the fraudsters are so slick. They've already told you, yes, it's me. You know, I've gone there, so yes, I know the caller. So, and others are moving to app, or will not allow you to enter to get into your app at all if you're on any call. So they take the choice away from you. So that is starting to happen. But the fraudsters are getting around that by saying, I had one victim with a lot of hundreds of thousands. I forget the story they spun, but just end the call and these are so you take your time. Calls, we've been on the call a long time. Here are the bank account numbers. You must transfer your funds and to keep them safe, and you can't trust the staff in the bank. And everyone's willing to believe a conspiracy theory that people in the bank are somehow compromised, colluding, and so they buy it, and they're the fraudsters. So this business of take the number, and when the call ends, that's because they know you can't get into your app while they are scamming you on the phone.
Yeah,
it's. I speak about it a lot just because the number of people who write to me having suffering financial ruin as a result. And when you're older, you don't have fresh income coming in. It's gone.
It's really terrible. Kenton saying again, had a fraudulent call from that bank department. Number was correct, but they clearly were the fraudsters.
I don't know. I'd like to hear from him more about that number being correct, because that would be, I don't know about that.
A new loophole.
Unless they've found a way to spoof it and make it appear. Yeah, that's probably what they're doing. But they can't spoof the number on the back of the card. I was told that on good authority this morning.
So that's the way to go. Okay, so Anne said they eventually got through to the real fraud department, all sorted, no fraud, they were good. What do you say when a debt collector calls and instantly asks you to confirm your date of birth? Do you provide it? I do have a debt.
Oh.
That's Lawrence.
Well, so he's expecting the call from the debt collector. There's no harm in doing that, but I would say once they start saying you must pay this by a certain date, you are within your rights to say, please send me an email. I want to see what you've added as interest fees and interest and fees, and also check that it's the debt is not prescribed. So if it's been dormant for the past 3 years, then they're not legally entitled to, you are not legally required to pay it. But that's a whole show on its own.
Oh.
But the bottom line is you don't have to accept that call as being the full extent of the demands. You are within your rights to say, I would like to see that in writing, please.
And that's probably then best practice, especially in this case of banking, finances. Rather just take it over to email. That way you'd be able to reread it, make sure, check that everything is coming in from the right place.
Especially prescribed. If you've got it in email, then you can have got time to check rather than be pressurized to saying yes or something. Because once you agree, once you say yes, they take that as an acknowledgement of the debt, and then your prescription defense falls away. So it's a problem.
Wendy Knowler, thank you so much. Bang on 3 o'clock now. It's been a treat being in your company. Mr. John Matham is next. It's time for news.